My name is Bill Ferguson, and we are interviewing Mr. Edwin Canter, a veteran served in World War II. We thank you, and we're going to start out with first, tell us about you, your parents, your family, and where they live, and where you live.
I was born in North Wilkesboro to Grady Canter and May Hayes Canter. And they eventually moved to Miller's Creek and Pelear, and I grew up there in that community and finished high school at Miller's Creek High School in 1938. And after coming back from the service, I now live on the Brushy Mountains.
Which branch of the service did you serve?
In the Marine Corps.
When did you serve?
H.D. Caudle and I joined the Marine Corps together. He and I were born on the same day. We grew up together, and we joined the Marine Corps. We didn't want to be drafted, so we joined together at Winston-Salem, and then about a week or two later, I was notified to go to Raleigh and go on down to and sign in with the Marine Corps, and he did next day. But did the boot training at Parris Island, South Carolina, and then after that I was assigned to Portsmouth, Virginia Sea School, and from training there went on up to and joined the USS Santa Fe cruiser from Sea School, and then went into Hawaii from there, and joined our ship joined the Armada ships up in the Aleutians, and for the attack of Attu and Kiska there, and I was under a 5-inch gun manning a 20 millimeter. And the concussion from the 5-inch gun perforated my right eardrum. So I was signed back to the States, to the Camp Elliott in California, and went through further training there and specialized in machine gun training, and then to the Transit Center in Hawaii and near Pearl Harbor. So went to rocket school at Camp Beaumont, and the Camp Beaumont to training to Moy, and joined the 4th Marine Division. From our first battle was on Saipan, and then in June to July, from June 9, July 19, Saipan, and then about 2 or 3 weeks later we went to Tinian, and we finished there in August, I believe it was, and then February the 9th we landed on Iwo Jima.
Okay, let's stop right there. A lot of these questions are sort of in here, what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You just answered about 5 of them right there, so let us sort of catch up with where.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you about, do you remember Pearl Harbor?
All right.
Where were you?
Give me a cutoff sign or something, whenever you want me to stop.
That's fine. We'll take them in order.
Okay.
Do you remember Pearl Harbor, and where were you when you received the news, and what were your feelings? Let's make it sort of, compact, sort of soundbite like.
On the December 7th, 1941, the weather was nice and warm, and we were sitting on my dad's front porch in Pelear. And Arthur Nichols from the Marine Corps and Von Cook from the Corpsman of the Navy were visiting there in the community. Arthur was raised there, and he was a cousin of mine. And we heard the announcement that Pearl Harbor had been attacked, and Arthur immediately said, "We've got to get back to base." And that brought a funny feeling of some sort, anxiety over all of us, and we knew that we were going to be at war.
Okay, what was the, why was there rationing, and on what items, and how did civilians get involved in the war effort?
Well, civilians got in the war effort, and this is where a nationalism developed across our whole land. It was a great feeling to know that every family was involved one way or another, had somebody in service from their family, or either they had taken jobs in war plants and whatever, and to help supply the needs of the servicemen. And as far as rationing is concerned, we had field rationing when we were in the field, but when, if it's possible, and back in training or resting, we had good meals. We had to cook meals there.
Were you married at the time?
No, I was single. I was age 21.
Okay. You just answered the next question. You've already answered the what branch of military, so we got that. Where were you trained? You told us about that. Did you have any interesting experiences in training? Anything unusual in the training? Was it difficult or as hard as you thought?
Well, it was probably the most difficult was in boot camp in Parris Island, South Carolina. I was down there in July and August and September, and that was a hot, humid time, and that was the most difficult phase of my training, I believe.
Okay, was it difficult to go from civilian life to military life?
Well, not particularly at that time. It was a definite change of living, and then taking orders all day and working all day. And I did have an experience at Parris Island I thought was interesting. I'd seen my mother wash clothes and using Clorox, and the first day on Parris Island, we went down to get our materials, and I had a bucket, and I got Clorox, because we had to change underwear about once a day and keep them washed and clean, because we were always so wet with perspiration. And next morning when I got up to go out the door, I was going to hang my underwear on the line outside, and when I pulled them out, there's just a bunch of big holes.
Okay, we're gonna catch back up now where I cut you off there. You were talking about being in Iwo Jima, I believe it was. Were you in combat? Any interesting experiences that you might like to tell us about in the combat situation?
Well, the one or two things that still haunts me a bit is on one of the islands, Saipan or Tinian there, where we had pushed to the upper end to the cliffs, and rather than to come in and surrender to the Americans, Army and Marines, they would jump off the cliff, and some ladies would sit on the edge of the cliff and comb their hair and hold a baby in their arm and jump off the cliff, and that has been a haunting experience.
Do you believe in the justness of the World War II, and what is your feeling toward the war now?
In World War II, we were attacked, and our defense had to be in such a way that we got involved with the European nations who were being taken over seriously by Germany and their allies. In today's war, I feel like that we have to protect and take care of our military men in service, regardless of how we feel, how we got into it. We have our people there that must be protected and given as much attention that we can give.
Okay. If it's possible, what would you identify as the positive long-range effect of World War II?
Well, hopefully it was going to be the last war that the world would be involved in, but scriptures tell us there will be wars upon wars, and apparently this is what's happening and will continue to happen. The World War II, I thought, brought our country together closer than I had ever experienced or experienced since, because as I mentioned a moment ago, that the feeling of nationalism was so great that we had to take care of each other and keep of our loved ones and those we were not acquainted with. They were part of our family, so to speak.
Okay, again, if possible, what would you identify as the negative long-range effect of World War II?
I don't know that the negative effect that came out would probably come from Russia with their leaders that created an ill feeling with communism, that created problems for the world, and which helped to create the situation in Cuba, our next door neighbor, where we should be a friendly state with each other. And I feel like that's was the most serious thing that occurred.
Do you remember the dropping of the atomic bomb? What was your reaction? At the time, did you feel that dropping the bomb was necessary?
Well,
Or are you feeling the same now?
I was, at that particular time, I was overjoyed because I was recuperating back in the States from my wounds I received on Iwo Jima. And that I knew that the war would be over soon. And but the aftermath and destructions that wars create is nothing that we could possibly do. And in order to prevent more deaths and destruction, the atomic bomb might be considered a helpful thing.
Okay, what was your reaction in recent efforts of Japan to portray themselves as victims in World War II? Do you accept their explanation that Japan was on the verge of surrendering and that dropping the atomic bomb was totally unnecessary?
Well, Japan was losing, and their excuses are immature in that way, trying to create sympathy from their people and from the world. But they're the ones who started the war, and they got spanked good for it, and it created animosity, I'm sure, from their country and our country. But today, they seem to be controlling things.
What kind of weapon did you use in the war?
20 millimeter in the Aleutians, and I was with the rocket detachment on Saipan and Tinian Iwo Jima.
Excuse me. What was your rank?
Corporal.
How long were you in action?
Well, the Saipan and Tinian and Iwo Jima if it was different times, of course, and different. It would be with those three battles, and then Attu and Kiska would probably be around 60 days, I guess, to combine those action times.
What is your reaction? What was your reaction when you learned the war was over? Where were you?
I was in Washington, D.C. the night that General MacArthur was on the battleship Missouri signing a treaty with the Japanese. And I felt a very glorious feeling of relief.
Okay. How long was it before you were able to come home? How were you treated? Did you have a job? Did the war have an effect on you? Did you have nightmares? Were you exposed to biological warfare? Did the government cover up? Did you suffer injuries? A lot of questions.
Well, the injuries I received was a bullet wound by a sniper on Iwo Jima. And while I was being taken care of, shells came in, and I was hit again with the shrapnel. I have recovered well, some consequences, but had my eardrum perforated in under a 5-inch gun in Attu and Kiska. But I recovered well, and I came home. I was discharged September the 22nd, 1945, and I came home and rested for about a month or so, and then I entered business school in Greensboro. And then I transferred from there to Appalachian and got a BS and MA degrees there, administration degrees.
How did humor help you get through the war, and did you have friends who were killed or POW?
I had several friends who were killed in the war. I was not a POW.
Tell me a little bit how the humor helped you get through the war.
Well, you have to have a bit of humor of some sort to keep your mental faculties, and if you can't have a bit of humor, you develop depression, and you'll have to be in real serious conditions. But humor is very important, and we had people that could keep things going most of the time.
What do you feel is important to the future generations in this interview?
I am very pleased with our young people. I do interviews for scholarships for VFW and Brush Mountain Ruratang Club, and they did a lot more now than I did when I was in school. I'm always awed by their energy and their intelligence and their sincerity. And it's only a small percent of our youngsters who create our problems, and we got to work with them to develop, if they can learn to develop compassion and that sort of thing to help their mankind, we'll be better off. It's those people who work with other people and that's able to make progress in the world today. But I'm pleased with our young people.
Very good answer, and I agree with you 100%. I found it myself. Do you have an opinion about our war on terrorism?
It's regrettable that this sort of thing can happen, but it's amazing the strength of a religious group can have. And they're so strong around the world. There are more of them than there are of us in our way of life. And that what's amazing is that somebody can sit in a cave and communicate around the world and tell their people what to do. And they collect money from us and they give it back to us with terrorism. And I don't know how to handle that. I don't think we ought to go into another country and set up a buffer zone and create a battle zone for war on terrorism. But I don't know how to handle it. What's the best way? It creates fear in everybody. You had like buying a plane ticket to travel or whatever, and it just creates a lot of anxiety. But it's not the way to fight a war. You can't make treaties with them. They're not a country that you can make a treaty with and stop the war and make conditions like we have with Germany and Japan, that we buy more of their cars than we do our own now today. But we've learned to live together. But I don't know if we can do that with this present situation.
How do you feel about the opposing viewpoints of the current war on terrorism?
Well, it helps to give balance to the situation. It's not like creating a nationalism like we had in World War II, when we were all being attacked and defending our freedom and our way of life. And this is a different type situation. It's going to be hard to handle. But somebody has to be opposed.
Does the American opposition weaken our effort in Iraq?
I think it perhaps does. It creates a philosophy that some of our people might be on their side when it's not that way. It's not that way at all. And I think the negative reaction that might get is that it was the wrong way to go into war. If it had been a different way of going into war and declaring war, I think would have made a big difference.
Okay, let's see here. Do you think it's okay if this film is made available in the facility at our libraries for historical purpose?
Well, if it can be of some help.
Okay, this interview for Marine Corps. What attracted you to join the Marine Corps over the other military services?
Well, I think their propaganda was probably better. They had a good film out with the all-dressed blues and whatever, and that looked good. And so we didn't want to be drafted by the Army, H.D. Caudle and I, so we decided we'd join the Marine Corps.
Okay, you already answered this question. Boot camp, you went to
Parris Island.
How much did you know about the Marine Corps recruit training, the boot camp experience before you began?
Very little. Arthur Nichols, my cousin, who was on the porch at my dad's house on December 7, 1941, had joined the Marines. And I told him on that day, prior to the announcement we heard on the radio, that I was going to join the Marines. And he said, "Don't," says, "you can't make it." And so that gave me some incentive to join. But I trained about 2 months before I went into service down there. And I never was picked up and carried off back to sick bay. They had trucks coming along behind, pick you up, take you to sick bay, but my homework paid off.
Okay, you answered that next question about their first arrival, the first day you came to boot camp.
Well, Parris Island has a way of bringing you in at nighttime, and So it was the next morning that we went down and got our stuff at the PX, and I got my Clorox to wash my underwear and shirts in, and the big holes that came in my clothes when I let them stay too long and used too much Clorox.
Okay. The impressions of the training you received, was it difficult as you had expected?
Well, it was probably more. There's more time involved, and the sand there was about ankle deep to march and travel in, so it was really hard for me. But I developed the attitude before I went that I would do whatever they said to do and keep my mouth shut, and it paid off.
Okay, what type of things did you do in boot camp? What activities were stressed? Describe a typical day at boot camp from reveille until lights out.
Well, it would happen at different times. We was up early, and we always had to take a salt pill at lunchtime because of the heat and the humidity there. We were working on most of the time while we were there. Once in a while, we would sit under a tree and talk about the war that was going on out in the Pacific, and the building up our confidence and our desire to go on and do further training. They were developing a esprit de corps feeling from about the middle of our training there to where you felt like that you were becoming a part of the Marine Corps, and that they use the old slogan that, oh, once a Marine, always a Marine, and I still have that feeling.
Okay, were the drill instructors as tough as you expected, and how accurate were the portrayals of them in the movie as the DI in full metal jacket?
Well, that was the jackets and etc. was what impressed me about the Marine Corps. But the thing about it was, I was not issued blues when I got to Portsmouth, Virginia Sea School. They had stopped issuing them the day before.
I think, let me read it again. Were the drill instructors as tough as you expected?
Oh, I didn't know what the drill instructors were like.
The last of the question is, like there was a movie, The Drill Instructor, and then there was a movie named Full Metal Jacket. So
I see.
If you didn't see the movies, you wouldn't understand.
I don't think I've seen that movie.
Okay, just for answer the question about the drill instructors as tough as you expected.
Well, they were unusual people. They were tough, large or small. It didn't make much matter size, but they could make you think they were extremely tough. But the thing about it was, they had everything to back them up with, so you had to do what they said.
All right, describe your living conditions while you were in boot camp.
Well, I got accustomed to that. The food was good. The 3 good meals a day, and we had to keep our clothes washed and hung all the time out there on the line, keep up with that. But I adjusted, I think, quickly to their living and accepted the philosophy of the training. We got along fine.
Did you feel the Marine Corps' attempts to instill in its recruits the feeling that they are becoming elite members of an elite organization?
Yes.
If so, how do you think they accomplished this?
They do a good job accomplishing that philosophy. They make you feel like once a Marine, always a Marine, and when you get through and with that tough training, you feel like that you have earned it, and that you have become what they expect of a Marine, and the expectations are high. I managed to get through it fine.
Have you ever discussed...
And he said he was in the Marine Corps and said he was a Hollywood Marine.
If you ever discuss recruit training with veterans from other branches of the armed forces, what is your opinion of the recruit training you received versus that which they received? How did it differ, or was it similar? Which was better, tougher, or why?
I think it's similar. Everybody would talk about the same way I would about the training, because it's different. It'll be tougher than we might anticipate. But I think most training, Air Force, Army, Navy, Marines, are all tough training. It helps to develop the discipline that they want.
In what primary occupational specialty did you train after boot camp? Where and for how long were you trained, and how effective was the training?
Well, Sea School had a lot of naval training since I was going to be a member of the Sea School program. But I got off in Attu and Kisco in the Aleutians and came back to the States, and then sent back overseas to the Transit Center.
Okay. What was your first duty station after receiving training, and what was your assignment?
The first assignment was in the Philadelphia Naval Yard, guard duty.
Okay, the court states that every Marine is a rifleman first. What is your opinion of that statement?
I have no problem with it.
Did you ever notice any animosity or rivalry between the Marines and other services? If so, describe how it manifested itself. Jokes, fights, so on and so forth.
Well, most of that negative things there would happen on Liberty sometimes with Navy, Marines having a little scrapple, but that's just what it was. They were friends.
Did you ever serve aboard ship?
Yes, on the U.S. cruiser Santa Fe.
Okay, you answered the second question. What was your feeling towards the Navy and the sailors aboard ship? What duties were you required to perform while aboard ship?
Well, the Marines on the ship were about 30, and about 1,300 naval men, and we got along fine.
And what were your duties?
Guard duty at on the 20 millimeters.
Okay, that's all you get. 3, 4, 5 questions you've already got answered, so we're going to check them off. Do you remember Pearl Harbor?
Yes.
Where were you when you received the news?
I was on my dad's porch, December 7th, 1941.
You already answered that question.
Yeah.
Why was there rationing? Didn't we already answer?
Yeah, I think so.
Recognition.
Received the Presidential Unit Citation and the Pacific Theater Citation and the Purple Heart.
Okay, you've already said you did serve in a war. Describe your uniform.
Mostly dungarees. Only had we'd go out on Liberty or something, we'd wear a tie and khaki shirt and pants.
How about the dress blue?
Didn't get the dress blues. They had stopped issuing them the day before I got to Sea School in Portsmouth, Virginia.
That's good to know. Because that's never been, I did not know that. Okay, the food, particular food you liked?
Well, the food was fine. I didn't have any complaints much. A lot of folks did, but it was good to me.
Entertainment. What did you do when you were off duty?
Well, mostly if we were where we could get to a theater, we'd go to a movie. We had, I guess, when we were up there in Philadelphia, waiting for the USS cruiser Santa Fe to move out, we'd go on Liberty over to the city of Philadelphia, and they would have people from stage shows as well as movies.
Weather and geography in the area you served.
It was in the Aleutians. it was cold up that way in May, and I remember a storm, the armada of ships, battleships, cruisers, carriers, and destroyers in a storm one evening, and the waves were so high and down that the ships that would go up and down as you couldn't see them, then back up, and that was something that stayed with me and remembered that ocean can be awfully strong.
Your job responsibility while in the service?
Well, mostly it was in my group that we either training most of the time or in special schools or whatever.
What were you doing when you heard you could go home?
Well, I was at Quantico, Virginia, where I was discharged on September 22nd, 1945, and I was elated.
Was your job waiting for you?
No, I came home and rested, recuperated for about 30 days, and then I went to business school in Greensboro.
What are some of the advantages of being a veteran?
Well, you have a feeling that of service to your country, because that's one thing that we were always taught, to love your country and appreciate the opportunity to do that.
Sorry.
It's all right. And then too, that veterans I meet across the country today, there's a special feeling toward each other.
What are some of the disadvantages?
I don't know of any disadvantage or negative things about being a veteran.
What do you feel is important to the future generations in this interview?
I think we're going to be in good shape. Our young people are developing well, and they're being trained well in the schools and home, and I feel like can be in good shape.
Do you have any particular memories about your life as a veteran that you would share?
Well, nothing particular, that it was a different way of life, and lived through it.
Okay.
I have one question, if you don't mind, and answer to Bill, if you would. If you had to explain in 2 or 3 sentences.
Look at me when you're talking.
Okay.
But in 2 or 3 sentences, if you had to explain to an elementary school student sometime in 10 years from now, how would you describe the World War II experience?
Say that again.
If you had to explain World War II and your experience during that conflict to an elementary school student, maybe 10 years from now, how would you do that in 2 or 3 sentences?
I would probably talk them similar to what I've said here today. We need to help the children to develop a nationalist feeling that their life here on earth is to help and support people, to make life easier for everyone as possible, and to develop kindness and consideration for people. That this can be accomplished through serving in the military as well. But because times are changing a great deal, and philosophy changes too, I would give them support and encouragement.
Do you have any other suggestions on, because back in the 40s, and of course I wasn't there, but it seems like you had a real passion for patriotism, the whole society. Do we still have that today?
It seems to be dividing a bit. It seems to be a bit more. We need to bring it back. You need to get the nationalist feeling that we're all one together. And when you have to fight different groups here at home to accomplish what you need to have done for the good of people, need to reconnoiter like a playing football game. If that play didn't work, go back and get a bunch up and to go back and play another one. But there's people as a whole want to feel safe and secure, and the only way to do it is for all of us to be that way. You don't want to be like a civil war fighting your brother.
Last question, I promise you. Very interesting man. What did we learn as a country? What one thing did we learn from World War II?
We learned that we could do it if we have to, old people, young people, whatever it takes to accomplish your objectives, and that it takes us all working together as a team. You have to have the team approach to all things, and that includes family, schools, any organization or nation.
Okay, I got a couple of questions if we got time.
Absolutely.
You know, you were showing me the pictures of the women in the military.
Yeah.
How do you think during World War II the women helped us win the war? Just tell me something that I know what you're going to say, I hope.
Well,
The women. What did they do?
The women gave you encouragement. They wanted to share too. And they did it by joining the service. They did it by working in war plants. And they were willing to show that they could do the same thing, and they're proving it.
All right, one other question. Do you think that people respect the national anthem like they did in the old days when they play the national anthem and you see it on TV and you see people don't pull off their hat, they just keep moving? Tell me a little bit about that.
That's sad. That's discouraging.